Once, in a small village, there was a boy named John, who lived with his parents in a hut. John was an obedient son, and both his parents were blind. He loved them deeply and took care of everything around the house. John worked as a shoe polisher. He managed all the household chores on his own, since his mother was too weak to help. Despite their hardships, John never complained, and always served his parents with kindness and patience. His parents depended on him completely, and he made sure they were comfortable and cared for every day. One early morning, John woke up. The sun had barely risen, and a cool breeze drifted through the little hut. He stretched, rubbed his eyes, and quietly got out of bed, careful not to wake his parents. John lit the small stove and placed a pot of water on it. As the water began to boil, he added tea leaves, watching them swirl in the bubbling water. After a minute, he poured in some milk and added a spoonful of sugar. He stirred it gently and let it simmer for a moment, before pouring the hot tea into 2 small cups. Then, John made toast. He took some pieces of bread, toasted them lightly over the flame, and spread a thin layer of butter on top. He peeled a banana, sliced it neatly, and placed the pieces on a small plate. When everything was ready, John arranged the cups of tea, toast, and banana slices on a small tray. He carried the tray to his parents' bedside and set it gently on the table in front of them.
Good morning, Mom, Dad. Breakfast is ready,
he said with a smile. His mother's face lit up.
Thank you, son. You are up so early again.
John sat down beside them, happy to see them smile.
It's nothing, Mom. I like making breakfast for you both.
His father patted John's hand.
We are lucky to have you.
John went to the bathroom and filled a small can with water, grabbed a bar of soap, and took a soft towel. He returned to the room and knelt beside his parents' bed and said gently,
Mom, Dad, let's get you cleaned up.
Carefully, he poured water over their hands, rubbed them with soap, and rinsed them off. Then, he dampened a corner of the towel to wipe their faces, drying them with soft pats. John sat close to his parents, holding a piece of toast.
Mom, here's a bite,
he said softly, guiding it to her mouth. She smiled as she chewed slowly. Then he offered a slice of banana to his father.
Dad, your turn.
His father leaned in, taking the piece. John carefully lifted the cup of tea.
Now a sip for each of you.
After John finished his breakfast, he took a jug full of water and poured it into a glass, placing it on the side table by his parents' bed.
Here is some water for you both,
he said with a smile. Then he grabbed his box of shoe polish and repair supplies.
I will be back soon from work,
he promised, waving goodbye as he stepped out. After John reached his workplace, he sat on the roadside and opened his box. He carefully set out his shoe polish and repair tools on the footpath and waited for customers. As customers began to arrive, one man said,
I need my shoes polished. Please.
John smiled and replied.
Sure.
He applied polish and buffed the shoes until they gleamed. After finishing, he said,
That will be $5.
He took the money with a smile. Another customer approached.
Can you fix my shoe? The sole is coming off.
John nodded and replied.
Of course.
He carefully removed the sole and applied glue. After this, he carefully stitched the sole back, using a needle and strong thread. He made sure each stitch was tight for a secure hold. After checking that everything was tight, he said,
All done. That will be $7.
When the sun set, John collected his things and packed them in the box. He counted his money. Then he went to the grocery store, where he picked out a few eggs, a bag of lentils, a loaf of fresh bread, a small pack of tea, a little packet of sugar, and some spices. Then he paid for the items and headed back home. When John returned home, he hugged his parents and said,
I'm back.
He placed his box in the corner and went to the kitchen. First, he washed the lentils and put them in a pot with water to boil, and added cumin, turmeric, salt, and chili powder, stirring well. Once the lentils were cooked, in another pan, he heated the oil and fried minced garlic until golden. Then poured it into the lentils. Finally, he scrambled some eggs with a pinch of salt and toasted a few slices of bread. John set up dinner on a small table beside his parents' bed and said,
Here's your dinner.
He fed them each bite, carefully wiping their mouths with a napkin. Afterward, he washed their hands, dried them with a towel, and took the empty plates to the kitchen to wash. After dinner, the three chatted happily, and John's mother said,
I wish to go to the church, but it's far from our village.
John smiled and replied,
I can take you there. Mom, we will go together.
As John lay in bed, he thought,
How can I take both of them to the church?
Then an idea struck him. He said to himself,
Oh, I can make 2 large baskets for them to sit in.
The next morning, John woke up early, and after breakfast, he went to the market and bought wood and other supplies. At home, he worked hard for a week, and when he finished, he joined the 2 baskets together. He checked their balance to ensure they would be safe and comfortable for his parents to sit in. The next morning, John woke up early and prepared breakfast, packed some food for their journey. After feeding his parents, he carefully seated them in the baskets and placed a water bottle and meals inside. Then he set off toward the church, carrying the baskets on his shoulders. In the forest, John saw the water was finished, so he seated his parents under a tree and said,
I will find some water.
And then he went. At that time, the king was hunting in the forest. He saw bushes shaking and thought a deer was hiding. He shot an arrow, but it hit John instead. John cried out in pain.
Ah!
Hearing the cries, the king rushed over. He found John hurt, and John pointed to his parents, who lay still nearby. The king became sad. The king approached them and gently said,
I'm sorry. Your son has passed away. I want to take you both to my palace and care for you as my own parents.
John's mother wept, shaking her head.
No, it can't be. No one loves us like our son.
The king took John's parents to his palace. Despite his efforts, they remained unwell and soon passed away. Moral: true love for family remains strong, even in the face of hardship and loss.